Happy New Year's Day today. Back in the shed, final touches kind of stuff. Didn't film the last day or two, I think, but it's all running good. I don't know if we've done anything like that. I won't start it up right now because I've just drained the coolant. We've got some like ongoing, like kind of annoying things. So the annoying things that are happening, so this fan is running always. The temperature switch isn't doing its job. But I've like I've got 3 temperature switches here and they're all working as they're expected. So Toyota switches are normally closed. So there should be continuity through the switch when it's cold. And then when it gets to temperature, the switch breaks the circuit. And all of my switches have continuity when cold. So the circuit has to be broken somewhere else. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that right now. I'm thinking about just running like a completely separate like couple of relays and just wiring it independently of everything else because fuck finding the issues. The other issue was the temperature gauge on the cluster wasn't moving, and then we realized that it doesn't have a sensor for it. So this is where the sensor should plug in and this is where it should go, and it's just been blanked with a bolt. The issue is like we've got the sensor from one of my old motors, but it's like a much thicker thread, like 15 mil compared to like 10 mil. So can't use this. I'm gonna go to a Wreckers tomorrow and just look through Corollas of similar generation to the engine and see if I find one that looks like it might have the right thread and grab that. But yeah, apart from that, what have we done? So I just finished wiring in the wideband. Oh, I guess I'll show you. So we've got the whole exhaust in the car now. I'll cut back after the hoist is finished. I don't know if you can hear me. So standard 20 valve headers into standard 20 valve silver top secondaries, just some fiberglass heat wrapping on that because the normal heat shield was just kind of flogged and didn't have its clamping. So this is the normal narrowband O2 sensor. The ECU is running off that and that's how it's wired, so that's how we're going to leave it for now. I think the ECU does have capability to run off a wideband, but I'm not about to start chopping it up before I don't know how it even runs. But we have put a wideband in the exhaust as well, so just an AEM wideband kit that's just welded straight down into that, and that loom there has been fed up through that grommet in the passenger side and then it runs through the floor, and we've got the gauge in there. Just finished wiring up the gauge internally, so now we'll be able to monitor how well the ECU is running it off the narrowband, and just I can keep an eye on it, see how rich it is, how lean it is. So that's in there. So this is the exhaust. So just the one that came out of the parts car. So it's just 2-inch all the way back, resonator into the muffler. When we bought it, this muffler was all just welded one piece here. So we had to cut it to get it out of the car. So Dad welded some like 2-inch flanges on. Not the prettiest welds, but they should do the job. And then just kind of ground out the rust on the tip. We need to move it a bit because at the moment it's going to melt the bumper because it's like rubbing on the bumper, so that needs to be changed a little bit. But yeah, that's the exhaust. What else have we done? We're having to deal with some coolant leaks. So the hoses we had to like cut and merge to fit better. This little has a pipe in there and like these 2 clamps joining this piece of pipe. So this keeps leaking through this joiner, which isn't ideal. So we'll probably like take that out and just like smack it with silicone. Might do the same thing for the top hose. I came back in this morning and there was like a bit of a coolant leak. This is all because I've been draining it and it just went everywhere. But there's a bit of a coolant leak and I couldn't see where it was coming from, but it was, so it was pulling on the cross member. And really the only stuff above the cross member is the heater core lines up there. So they might just be a bit loose. They've got kind of shitty hose clamps on them, and we're finding that these silicone hoses need a lot of like clamping force to actually seal them. So that's probably that. But yeah, that's probably really it. The main things that we've got to sort out is just ongoing kind of coolant leaks, and wiring in the switches and fixing how this fan runs. Everything else is pretty much done. So the gauge is wired in, all that sort of stuff. I'm probably gonna lower it a bit more. I'm probably gonna add a bit more preload in these coilovers and lower it maybe another centimeter. But yeah, it's pretty much put the front back on now. If everything goes to plan, should be on the road again by the end of the week, I think. It'll need a wheel alignment, but it should be on all 4 wheels and rolling under its own power, hopefully. Cheers. How's it going? What day is it today? The 3rd of January. I don't think I filmed anything yesterday, or I don't think I filmed it running, but I don't know what I even talked about in the last one. I think we talked about the ground strap issue and all that sort of stuff, but it's getting there. It's almost done. So the last couple of gremlins that have been fixed. So it didn't have a temp sender in it. Got one out of an AE82, which has the same thread and a blade connector. So it just comes back on because this one was using the original 82 loom connector there. So that's good. Thermofan issue was actually something super stupid that I did. So when I pulled all this engine and wiring out of the original car, it had AC. The AC pressure switch was right there, and it didn't have a plug on it or anything. It just was wired directly to the switch, and I just cut it. And so, like all Toyota things, I'm guessing they're like normally closed. So when it sees an open signal, it means that it's calling for whatever that operation is to like fire that relay. So took the wires out, joined the 2 wires together of the switch, so it's closed now. And now the thermofan only switches on when the temp sensor says so. So thermofan all works perfectly now, which is sick. Temp sender to the gauge works perfectly. Coolant, we're getting there. So there's little things like sandblasted the radiator, clamps, repainted the battery bracket. It's not a great paint job, but it looks better than it did. Bumpers back on, headlights are back on. Not putting the grille back on until we've got the bonnet on and are sure that the bonnet is closing and will reopen, so we can just access that bracket easily if we have to. You can see by the color of that coolant, it is yellow coolant. It's not. I'm not using green coolant. I'm using universal yellow coolant. Like it's got a bit of crud coming out of the block. So this is actually the second lot of clean coolant that we've put in. The first lot is there, which came out when I pulled that bottom hose out and redid the clamps. And then also when it was out of the car, we ran a hose straight through the block to flush out a lot of the gunk. So it just shows you how much gunk is still in that fucking block, but it's good. Yeah, I think this is the first time I'll show this in a video, but show it running. So where's my key? There we are. So this is another gremlin we've got, where it doesn't want to crank sometimes. Then you see when it does crank, fires straight up. Idles pretty good. It's idling at 1,000. It's got, I don't know what it is doing for idle control. I don't know how the idle control valve is actually working on this car, how it's idled in. I have a vacuum leak built into it to kind of give it a bit more airflow, but it seems to work. Yeah, so it is warm. In case you think I'm just revving it cold, it is warmed up. We just kind of finished bleeding the coolant, so it's warm, all safe to rev. But yeah, not 100% sure about why it won't crank first time every time. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you have to turn the key about 3 times to get it to crank. It does eventually start every time, but it's just a bit of a weird one. Not sure what the go is. I haven't had it. It hasn't like stalled out after it starts. It seems like maybe the solenoid in the starter isn't good. It was like, so I replaced a solenoid. I don't know if I've talked about this before. I probably have, but it's just a Chinese solenoid, like off of like Alibaba or something like that. Because I couldn't find like a proper like Denso unit or something. So maybe the solenoid isn't good and it only kind of fires sometimes. We'll just monitor it and see how it goes. But yeah, we're getting there. Really, the only things left now are I'm going to adjust the coilovers and lower it about another centimetre, and add some preload into the springs. And then I've just got to put the interior back in and put the bonnet on. And we're hoping that it's like on the ground drivable tomorrow. The only unknown about the car still is the gearbox. So it'll be interesting to see when we put it on the ground and try and drive it to make sure that gearbox is actually good, like I was told. If that gearbox is all good and no crunches, we're done. If it's crunching, I'll be annoyed. But yeah, check in next time. Yo, so more progress. I don't remember when I last filmed, but I've driven the car a bit since then. Took it out last night and just drove about 30 k's around the suburbs down here. It's got some issues. First being that it doesn't start every turn of the key, like it doesn't even crank. Starter motor doesn't even get power. And then the other one is it's got this weird kind of like surgy fucking stutter thing that happens. So first off, starter issues. When I first got this car, or when I first got this engine, had this starter in it with this solenoid. It needed to be whacked to start back in the day, so I bought this solenoid off of like Alibaba for like 20 bucks to replace it. And it does work, but like it doesn't work every time the key's turned. It's super weird. But we like pulled it out of the car. I borrowed this one, which is like brand new from my friend. Chucked that one in, started every turn of the key. So we're like, okay, it's a starter issue. We had this out on the bench. We were bench testing it with the battery, and it ran and like threw out perfectly every time. So we're like, oh, okay, maybe it was just a bad connection where like the actuator goes onto the solenoid, like this blade here. We were like, oh, maybe the plug is bad. So we'd like crimped the plug tighter to get like a tighter fit on that spade, and just kept fucking doing it. We cut the plug off and put a new plug on there to like have a better grip on the spade. And no matter what we did, we just couldn't deal with it. So there's something wrong with this solenoid. I mean, I guess it's cheap and nasty, but like it just doesn't make sense. It works perfectly out of the car, but as soon as you put it in the car, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I just went to like the local Repco and bought like a brand new one. Fun fact for anyone doing these, the starter motors for 20 valve 4AGs are the exact same starter motor for the 7A FEs. So that's a 7A FE starter. Works perfectly, starts every time now. The other issue is like the fuel thing. So what was happening is like I'd be driving it sitting around like 2,000, 3,000 RPM kind of thing, accelerating, and it just kind of has this really weird like stuttery like cut. And then I think it's like, I haven't really done any of this stuff before, so I couldn't really see the signs of this being the reason. But like I've got the wideband in it, and like I'd see that, and I'd see it kind of jump lean a little bit when it's doing that. So I'm like, oh, it sounds like a fuel issue. Like talking it through with some friends and with dad and stuff, and we think it's the pump. So like we put like a pump in it when we had the tank out, but the pump that I put in it wasn't brand new. It just came in that parts car Seeker, and it was just on the side. And we tested it out on like the floor, and it ran. So we were like, okay, we'll chuck it in. But it's fucking loud in the car. Like when you prime it, you can hear it. Even with the seats in, I can still clearly hear the pump priming and running when the car's going. So it's fucking loud. And we think it's just not delivering enough like pressure under like load. So I've ordered a new pump. That should get here in the next week. So next weekend, we'll drop the tank back out, put a brand new pump in it, put it all back together, and then drive it, and then see if it still does this weird cut. If it does, I don't know, like it's like maybe a fuel line blockage or like an injector issue. And those are kind of things that I don't really want to think about at the moment, because they're like going to be a lot more of a pain in the ass to fucking do and fix. So at the moment, I'm really just hoping it's the pump is bad. If it's still there after we've replaced the pump, I don't know what I'm going to do. That might be when I send it to like an actual mechanic and get someone that knows shit to look at it. But yeah, that's the update for now. It's getting there, but it's not perfect by any means. Still a couple of little coolant leaks and stuff. So we've done these clamps up so many fucking times, and it's still leaking there onto the gearbox from that neck. And there's like, I don't know if you can see it at the moment, there was like a pool of coolant there on the firewall, like draining down from the heater core. And it's just these silicone hoses, man, like they take so much fucking force to compress and then they still fucking leak. Like you can see it kind of like weeping through the cords of the hose there. It's super weird. It's like such a slow weep. It's nothing crazy. Oh, and another thing that's fucking annoying is like this engine and block has not been like opened. I haven't had it dipped or anything. So it's all the old stuff. And like when it was out on the forklift, we fucking put a hose through the water pump to like kind of flush out all the shit. And even after doing that and having a full set of coolant in it and like another fucking fresh set of coolant, that's what it looks like. Like it hasn't done a head gasket or anything like that. It runs fine. There's no bubbling. There's just so much shit in the block, so much like rust and just crap. So I mean, like probably when it's all going again, I'll probably end up dumping the coolant again, doing another whole flush, and then running it, and then putting more fresh coolant in it. Because at the moment, I just fucking hate seeing like that sludge when I open the cap. But apart from that, it runs great, and it's like the fuel issue is kind of weird because like I drove it last night to somewhere and it ran fine as I was driving there, and I turned it off and I was doing something for like an hour and I came back to it, got back in it, and it was just shit. It drove like fucking horrible back to the shed. So yeah, don't really know what it is, praying it's the pump. That's all we can kind of do at the moment. And as soon as I've got a new pump, I'll put it in and we'll find out if it is or not. But yeah, so at the moment, that's it. Hood's off again. So while the hood's off, I've got it over here. Like it's problem with these hoods is this shit separates from the sheet metal. So my plan to kind of make, and it doesn't look great, does it? So the plan while it's out is to kind of put like heat reflecting like adhesive like tape in all these like panel sections between the structure, just to like cover up like this shit and like all that stuff and make it look a bit more interesting. Because like another day, I don't know when I last filmed anything, but it's done. It's basically all finished. Today we put a new fuel pump in it. The old one looked completely fine, but this one's so much quieter and there's no issues. I think I made a video about like the issues it was having. It would stutter when it was running. But yeah, put a new pump in it. We took it for a drive with the laptop hooked up. It fucking pulls hard. It doesn't really lean out at all. There was no issues. It was good. So yeah, we've just kind of called it. I might get it run up on a dyno just to check the tune more. Like the tune isn't like great because it's done off map, and like you can tell as soon as you put your foot into it, it just like loses all vacuum. It goes all the way up on the map to like no fucking map, like no vacuum, and it just dumps fuel. So it'd probably be better if it was remapped using TPS, but I can't do that, so I have to get someone else. But yeah, gave it a wash. Going to take it out to a Cars and Coffee tomorrow. Looking good. Chucked the louver on it. So this louver was like an absolute hunt for me. I was looking for one of these for years. I found one through a friend about 6 months ago. Bought it, had a couple of cracks like here, but we kind of did some plastic welding with a soldering iron to like seal that back up. Cleaned it up and put it on. I think it looks pretty fucking sick. Absolutely grandma spec'd the car out. Done like a bonnet spacer kind of thing here. So it kind of just looks like it's got shitty panel gap, but the point of that is it kind of gets a bit of space in there between the seal and the bonnet. And like I was Googling this because some people do that spacing with the idea to get more air through like the radiator and like get more airflow and then come up and just kind of improve cooling. That's not what I've done it for. I've done it to try and suck more cold air in at the throttles, because obviously having the throttles open back here is not great for airflow from the front. So the idea is like people have done like aerodynamic like CFD models on this shit,
and there's like a high pressure region here. And so when you open up that like gap in the bonnet, it actually sucks air down through that gap. So it should hopefully help the air getting in to the throttles. It probably makes no real difference, but I mean, I'll do it. I might get sick of it eventually because it kind of just does look a bit jank, but for now we'll see if I get bored of it. But yeah, so really that's pretty much the project's over. There's little things to do on it, but nothing major. Like really it's going to be like clean up wheels and just do little things now and put different wheels on it. It's really pretty much done. So I should probably get around to editing all these clips together. But I'll try to borrow a friend's GoPro and get some actual driving footage to kind of chuck in with it, because yeah, it seems unfair to not have any actual driving footage. But yeah, if this video is probably an hour and a half long at this point, if you've watched the whole thing, thank you. I don't expect anyone to. And if you have any questions about doing this kind of shit, it's really simple, honestly, if you kind of know what you're doing to a degree. But yeah, reach out and I'm always going to be happy to answer questions. I'm probably most contactable on Instagram. I'll put a link in the description. But yeah, time to actually enjoy it and then figure out what else is going to keep me busy. That has shit to do on it, but I can't take it off the road because it's my daily. That doesn't have anything to do on it, and it's perfect, so why fuck with it? So it means I'd probably be looking for a new project, but I'll give that some time. Anyway, thank you. If more happens on this car, I'll try to film it, but it's probably best to just follow me on Instagram. I'll post everything about this car on there. I always post shit on Instagram. But yeah, hopefully this is now cutting to clips of it ripping nails.